What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run Pure Sports channel. It is July 4th, Independence Day. Happy July 4th to everybody. Stay safe out there. All that good stuff. Don't be a hater like our guy Big T hating on the fireworks. One day of fireworks per year, man. I don't get what the problem is with Big Anthony over there. But how you doing on this July 4th morning? And what is your thoughts on fireworks? Are you in the Big T camp? Or are you in the non-hater camp of enjoying the spectacle?
I don't care. Like I'll go watch them, but I'm not like locked in or something or taking pictures. But I don't really have an opinion. I'm more in the middle, so it doesn't matter. I'll go enjoy them. I won't enjoy them. I'm not finding the fireworks in it. I'm not like I need to go to a show and check them out, but I'm also not hating like Big T. I'll say that. So kind of more in the middle. I know it's not a great take, DC, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, kind of with you, to be honest. Can get, I can watch fireworks and enjoy them, but I certainly don't need to see them or anything like that. They're cool when you're like 10 years old. But
yeah. Like if you're with a lady, DC, and she really wants to see fireworks, are you gonna just throw your hands up in the air and like have a tantrum like Big T? I don't think so.
And there's like two different types of fireworks in my mind. That's the one, the big show, right? That a baseball stadium puts on or a city puts on, and then there's of course the personal fireworks. I don't really fuck with the personal fireworks too much. I'm not trying to pull Jason Pierre-Paul and blow a finger off. You know what I mean? It seems a little dangerous, especially after it's 4th of July. Probably put down a few adult beverages. So I don't really mess with those too much. What you are you a personal fireworks guy? You going to the fireworks store, like crossing state lines and coming out back with $300 of explosives, or no, you're not doing that?
No, I don't care to. But I had a friend, and he used to always get a ton of them, and they'd do a show in his backyard and stuff. And so I lit them off, and it was cool. But it wasn't like I was in awe or anything like that. It was there's a couple cool different ones that you can make a case for. But I agree. Like Big T says, though, they're pretty much the same every year. It's it's not like this new thing that I'm stumbling upon. So it's perfectly fine.
This is a good point. There's some videos out there where who's ever in charge of lighting them off, they all explode at once. Those videos are cool. When they're there's 1 second long, you can look them up. I do enjoy watching those, and I agree. Yeah, just get over with 1 minute full finale, and that's enough fireworks talk for today. We do have a 7-game slate on our hands. We got some potential weather issues on the slate as well. Baseball throughout today, so I assume if you're watching the show, you are a baseball fan, and multiple slates. I'm sure we'll have cores and all that stuff up on the Run Pure Sports site for all the slates, and I'll be watching some ball and probably playing multiple slates today. So hopefully a good night or good day of baseball awaits us. Let's get into the games, man. Going first game to talk about Cincinnati Reds and New York Yankees. This one in Yankee Stadium. We've got Marcus Stroman throwing for the Yankees. He's been a little bit shaky recently. Not a pitcher I roster very often. Didn't he get up to he was in the mid 9Ks for a while there, which was nuts. So I really haven't played much Marcus Stroman. I don't often take that many hitters against him either. Just kind of a pitcher who usually limits the damage. Obviously a good bullpen behind him in the Yankees. So usually not on the other side of Marcus Stroman starts, even though I don't play him a lot. And Frankie Montas going for Cincinnati. He's pitched okay in most of his recent starts. He does have a clear weakness against left-handed bats. Yankees got Ben Rice up there in the 1 hole, 2,800. I'm sure he'll be a popular play. Soto, we of course know about Judge. So kind of like the Yankees lefties in particular here. And of course, can always play Aaron Judge in any matchup, definitely including this one. Other things of note here, base stealers have been really successful against Marcus Stroman. So bumps to Ellie De La Cruz, Jake Fraley, Will Benson, I think, do have a chance to get running on the base paths if we get a chance. But we'll throw it over to you, man. Going Yankees and Reds. What do you got?
Yeah, this is definitely a game you have to have some interest in for sure. For one, I'm not scared of Frankie Montas. I don't think he's this amazing pitcher, but I don't love the Yankees lineup. We've talked about this a bunch. I know they got Ben Rice up in the one hole here. I'm sure he will be somewhat lucky on this slate, and he's definitely a solid play at 2.8K. I think like a mini stack of him and Aaron Judge is solid. And I'm going to play the Yankees, like I said yesterday, more as minis, not really liking them as a main stack. If I see any 5-mans for the Yankees, I'm probably not going to click on them. Probably not going to pick them for any of my teams. I don't mind the Yankees as the minis, but I don't think they're like a priority or anything like that. But like you said yesterday, playing Aaron Judge, does feel like he's just always a little underowned, and I'm in on some Aaron Judge for sure. The Cincinnati Reds are kind of intriguing. Their team total's very low, but I think you can make a case for the 5-man for some of the reasons you said. They get on base and you can steal against them. Some of these guys are definitely going to have some really big games, like Ellie De La Cruz. This could be one of those blow-up spots where he gets like 30 DK points. I know Mr. Marte had a home run yesterday, and who knows if maybe he starts to come alive. He's at a decent price tag of 3.8K. So I think he's an interesting play. I think you can make a case for the Reds as a 5-man and minis as well. So I'm looking at it from both angles there. It's definitely a good game to get exposure to. I think you'll get the Reds very low owned as well. I don't think anyone really wants to click on them, but I think it's a game you have to consider. And I talked about we don't normally like the Reds on the road, but again, this is Yankee Stadium. It's 85 degrees. It's a crosswind. Like it's not wind blowing out or anything like that, but it's still a good spot to attack this Reds team and play them. So I think they're in play. Are they going to be like my favorite stack on the slate? Probably not, but I do think they're going to be very low owned.
Yeah, super low owned. Ellie De La Cruz in particular is the guy that I want to get into my lineup. Obviously super expensive, but I just don't think people are going to get there. For one, it's a pretty tough pitching slate. The cheaper options don't look very good to me. So I think most people are going to spend up, at least into the mid-range for pitching. And that's going to limit what you can do with bats. And I don't think Ellie is going to be at the top of most people's list, but he swings better from the left side. Stroman does give it up a little bit to left-handed bats. And of course, we talked about the steals matchup. So I do think he's a sneaky contrarian spend up today. That's Ellie De La Cruz there. Houston and Toronto up next. We got pretty much a straight pick 'em in the betting market. Chris Bassett going for the Blue Jays. He's been decent this year. And then Framber Valdez going for Houston. He's struggled a little bit recently. He's kind of been alternating really strong starts and then some bad outings. Was bad, really bad. Last time out against the Mets, had a horrible outing against San Francisco back on June 12th. But then was really good against the Angels and Baltimore. So been kind of hard to predict Framber Valdez. His price is certainly more than fair at $7,500 for his talent level, but it's tough against the Blue Jays. You just do a really good job of putting the ball in play. So I don't think I'll be going to Valdez or probably Bassett in this game. I do think the Blue Jays are a decent contrarian stack. They have been heating up. Vlad's been on fire. George Springer swinging a good bat in the leadoff spot today is Springer. So I don't mind the Blue Jays. And then against Bassett, you clearly want lefty power. So yeah, Alvarez, Singleton, Loperfido, and Trey Cabbage are very cheap at the bottom of the lineup. So I don't mind going to some of those guys. It'll be hitting in this game that I'm more likely to play. What about you, man? Going Astros and Toronto.
Yeah, I came into, looking at some of these pitching numbers, and I felt like Valdez had really good regression coming his way, and I think he could have a good outing. And I know you and I have been on opposite sides of him, and I feel like I've gotten the best of you, but I'm scared of this matchup for the reasons that you said. I mean, you're right about the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays, their righties don't really strike out that much, and they got a lot of them in there against Valdez. Like, this feels like one of like the really bad matchups for Valdez in the league. Now I know in baseball, you never know what's going to happen, but I'm pretty concerned about this matchup, which should make me actually like the Blue Jays a little bit more. Cause I came into the show wanting to like Valdez because I do think he's got some positive regression coming his way, but I don't know. I'm concerned. I'm curious. I know you don't normally like Valdez, but can you pull the trigger on him today at all? He's so cheap. He's like 7.5K, and it's a slate where there's no pitching that I think we really love. Like when you just look at it, there's no Chris Sale, right? Where you just say, okay, he's an easy play, or Zach Wheeler against the Cubs. Like I don't know. I want to like Valdez, but I just struggle with this matchup.
Yeah, I'm not going to get there. Just with the low strikeout rates that the Blue Jays bring to the table. Valdez not as good against right-handed bats. He just doesn't have much going for him other than the price point, right? Obviously that $7,500 price point, but that's about it in terms of positive things to say about this matchup. So I won't be getting to Valdez. I assume his ownership will be at least, maybe not.
I see him unowned. That's why I'm debating it, because I just like before I even like look at matchups, when I look at the pitchers, I try to look like who's due for some positive regression, negative regression, and just like try to get a ballpark of it. And like I don't know. I think he's due for some positive, but I'm scared to death of this matchup. And this team's heating up, right? I mean, there's some feel to it where it's like, okay, a team's obviously better. There's improvements in their lineup. This Blue Jays team in April and May was a lot worse because they've now added guys back, right? Springer's back in the lineup, Bichette as well. Like, so it's not the same team. So that's why I'm a little nervous.
Yeah. Maybe positive regression coming for him, but I don't know if it's going to be today. So I'm not going to get to Valdez myself, but it is a tough pitching slate, especially one of my favorite pitchers has potential weather issues too. So it is one of those where you got to play two guys, and you're probably going to be a little bit uncomfortable no matter who you go to, either eating chalk or playing someone that you don't have a ton of faith in. It's just
and honestly, DC, if Valdez is 1%, like I mean that's what Saber's showing right now. Like that, it's just he'll be
higher than 1%. There's no way he's going to be 1%.
Okay, well. We'll see. He's one I'm a little still undecided on. I definitely don't like Chris Bassett. I'm not a big fan of him here, but I'm also not dying to play the Astros. I don't know about you, but it just doesn't seem like my favorite spot on this slate. I understand if the Astros, have a big day, they have a big day. It's Chris Bassett. He can either mitigate the damage or he can just be an absolute disaster. So it's kind of whatever take you have on it. I just prefer other offenses, so I can't get there.
Yep. Fair enough there. Let's get to the next game. Chicago White Sox, Cleveland Guardians. This one in Cleveland should be around 80 degrees. No real wind or anything like that. We've got Jared Schuster pitching for the White Sox. I don't really know why he's priced at $7,800 on DraftKings. He won't go deep into this game. Completely not playable in my eyes. And then Ben Lively, who continues to pitch well for the Guardians. I continue to doubt whether or not he can keep it up, kind of a journeyman soft tossing type, but no question he's been solid this year, and also no question he gets a really strong lineup here against a White Sox team that we do, of course, like to attack with opposing pitching. So I really haven't played Lively much, but on this slate at 8,200, he's a big favorite. Chicago, I believe, has the lowest team total of any team on the slate. Part of that is due to the Cleveland bullpen behind Ben Lively, so you don't want to oversell it. But Lively, he's got to be in consideration. They really rarely let him go, more than 90 pitches, so that's somewhat of a concern. But it's usually enough to get through 5 or 6 innings, and certainly against this White Sox team, you would think he should be able to do so. So, I don't mind Lively here. What are you doing with this game, man, going White Sox and Cleveland Guardians?
Yeah, I mean, one point you brought up that's great is like that Cleveland bullpen's so good. So, like, obviously, that's not the only reason to cross off the White Sox, but it's a good reason to add that in there. Because, I mean, if you look sometimes, a lot of the times when, like, the stacks blow up, it's because those bullpen guys come in there, right? And it's like a bad bullpen is just in the game. Like, that's one reason why you don't want to attack this Guardians team typically. I'm not big on Ben Lively. I mean, he's going to get some ownership. I think it's going to spread out on a lot of these guys, but he's not one of the guys that just like is a lean for me that I think is just that amazing play. Like, sure, if I landed on Ben Lively, got some exposure, but I think he's the worst play. No, but there's other guys I prefer. There's other ones I'd rather, put my hard-earned cash on than Ben Lively if I had to pick. So Ben Lively is not going to be someone that's a huge part of my player pool. Schuster, I don't really know much about. This game is in Cleveland. Cleveland has a pretty healthy team total. We also talked on this show. I know you and Steve talked about like how some of that power has gotten a little bit better because of some of like the I think they changed the ads in the stadium or something weird like that, where now the ball can fly out a little bit more. I don't want to completely ignore that. That's something I've kind of taken note of when you guys did the show a couple weeks ago. And I was like, I want to kind of be on Cleveland at Cleveland just a little bit more than the field. And I don't think people will catch on to that. And I just talked about it. Well, we want to attack bad bullpens. Well, the White Sox have a very bad bullpen. This is a spot where you're just going to get probably 8 innings, because I think the Guardians win. You'll get 8 innings of just really, really bad pitching. And it's hard to ignore with this Cleveland team. The problem that you run into are the price tags typically. We talk about it on this show. Jose Ramirez, 6.4. Kwan, 5.6. Naylor, 5.4. Jimenez is 4.5. The nice thing is Fry is not in the lineup. And I like having Fry in there, but he is 5.4. So at least you have a little bit more salary relief to roster these really good options up at the top. So I want to play the Guardians for sure here. I want to get exposure to them. I think it's a good spot, and I don't think they should go ignored. And I think they will a little bit. They just never get ownership naturally. So it's 82 degrees, wind's blowing slightly in, but I think it's a spot to, kind of key in on. Hopefully the ownership doesn't go up on this game because of weather and other spots. Maybe that could happen, but I like Cleveland a lot here.
Yeah, they've got some cheaper guys in there. Angel Martinez hitting second today. I believe it's a switch hitter, so it should be in there the full game. 2,200. I'm sure he'll be a popular play at third base. And then Schuster pitched just like 3 or 4 days ago. I think it's only going to be 1 or 2 innings for Schuster, most likely, maybe 3. And then I don't believe they have any other lefties available in the pen, the White Sox. So it's going to be really good matchups for this Guardians team all game long. Don't be afraid to play, the Stephen Kwan or Josh Naylor, lefty versus Schuster. They'll probably face him the one time, and they should get right-handed pitchers the rest of the game. So I really like the Guardians here. Just a good matchup all the way around for them against Schuster, and then whoever the White Sox bring out of the bullpen is not any good. I'm definitely in on the Guardians. Like I said, pretty good hitting environment, and really good for left-handed power, as we've talked about a few times in Progressive Field in Cleveland. So I'm in there. Any interest in the White Sox bats against Ben Lively? If it wasn't for the Cleveland bullpen, I might take some shots, but probably not going to do it. What about you?
For which one?
The White Sox bats at all against Ben Lively? Any interest?
No, I have no interest. I mean, I said it before too. Like one reason I would consider playing the White Sox is if they were in a game where they're also going up against a bad bullpen, but they're not, right? Like that's another reason to I shouldn't say ever take bats against Cleveland, but I just don't think we take bats against Cleveland much because for one, they have a lot of overall pretty good pitchers except Carlos Carrasco. And two, that bullpen's really good. Once we get at this point of the year, there's certain teams that we just don't target because their bullpen is just so good. And that's where you get like a lot of like those like ceiling performances. Like you saw it, I think, a little bit with Arizona yesterday. I mean, I know JBC made a late charge with his team, and it was because, well, the Dodgers' bad bullpen guys were in. And I know Cleveland for sure has a lot of good bullpen, or has some bad bullpen guys, and then obviously some of the strong ones. And if they're getting destroyed, they're not going to use the good bullpen guys right away. They're going to save them. But I just don't see it as a spot where it feels like a likely outcome that the White Sox are in this game. So I'm definitely going to be staying far away from the Chicago White Sox.
Makes sense to me. Let's get to Boston and Miami up next. We've got Nick Pivetta, who right now looks to be maybe the most popular pitcher on the slate. I think he will be against the Miami Marlins here. Pretty big favorites at -160. This one in Miami, so it is obviously a good place to pitch. And then rookie Kyle Tyler will pitch. Hasn't been terrible this year and has pitched okay as well in the minor leagues. Not really a high strikeout guy, though, and some question into how deep into this game he will go. Did throw 81 pitches last start out, so he should be mostly a full go, assuming he's pitching okay. He does get, a Red Sox lineup that loaded up on the left-handed bats. It got 7 of them in there today. I did look at Kyle Tyler and couldn't quite get there with him. I don't think he's the craziest play at 6K. He is the cheapest starting pitcher available on DraftKings today, which I think at least puts him in consideration. I think at low ownership as well. And then, like I said, Nick Pivetta going to be popular. Don't mind these Boston bats against Tyler and the Miami bullpen. And then if you are not on Pivetta, I do like playing some of this lefty power. That's Pivetta's biggest weakness. You can play Jazz, Josh Bell, Jesus Sanchez. All seem like reasonable plays to me if you are not on Nick Pivetta today. What about you, man? What are you doing, Boston and Miami?
Yeah, I mean, I can't get there with that lefty power. I mean, this game is in Miami, so that's obviously good for Pivetta as well. I love Pivetta here in this spot. Some of the stuff that I looked at looked like positive regression coming his way. It just seems like Pivetta is, I don't know, it seems like he's in a great spot. And I understand ownership is there. Totally get that. I think it spreads more than you do. Like, I don't think like Pivetta comes in at like this. And I'm not saying that you said this, but I don't think he just like gets steamed to being like the guy and it's like clear as day he's 50% or something like that. Maybe I'm overlooking the idea of maybe some of the weather, like getting rid of some of the ownership on other plays. But I think Pivetta is the best pitching play on the slate. If you don't want to take ownership into account, if he ends up somehow getting crazy steamed up, you could start making a conversation about it. But I think Pivetta is the best option. I'm going to play him for sure. I think he's just a really good play. I agree with you on the Boston bats. Like, I think they're in the conversation against Tyler. I'll admit, when I was looking into some of the pitching, I got to Tyler and I was like, I'll let DC tell me about this loser. Like, I don't need to look into him. And it doesn't seem like he's that good. Miami bullpen's not that great either. I could see the Red Sox having a big game. My only concern is it's just in Miami, right? And that's not one of my favorite ballparks to target this time of year. So that might be the reason why I don't get that final push on the Boston. If this game was in Boston with hot weather, I'd probably be more interested in this Boston offense, but I don't see myself totally getting there. I just think there's a couple better spots on this slate.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I do like those Boston bats a little bit if you're not on Pivetta. I like Pivetta too. I'm just, especially, we'll talk about Bailey Ober here in a second, but that game might get postponed or he would just be too risky to use, which I think all of that Ober ownership is, I think, going to go right to Pivetta because they have the same price tag essentially. So
that's the big concern, right? Like that's the issue. That's the thing I haven't really calculated in the slate yet because I don't really think about this game's going to be off the slate or on the slate until we get like an hour before. I just don't trust the weather until we get closer. I don't know what to tell you. That's how I view it. I think it's people overreact way too early on the weather. And that could definitely happen. And that could change my opinion on Pivetta for sure. I do think it's worth mentioning that this is the type of slate that ownership at pitching, it feels like we don't want to be on the chalky pitchers as much. It just feels like a good slate to take some shots on some uncomfortable stuff. Like you said at the start of the show, for the most part, most of the pitchers we are going to roster are going to feel uncomfortable. That's why I'm considering the Framber Valdez thing, just because I know it sounds uncomfortable, but I think everyone's uncomfortable with a lot of guys they're rostering. And when that's the case, this isn't Chris Sale chalk where it's like, okay, guy that's 40% owned, one of the best in the league, always can get the job done. I like, fading it when it's like Carlos Rodon chalk or just like some guy that doesn't deserve to be. So that's kind of my opinions on it. It really depends on Pivetta's ownership. That's why it's great to be in the Discord chat. This is stuff that we talk about here at Run Pure. And I think Pivetta is a great play, but ownership is definitely going to play a factor. If it keeps going up, you can make a case to kind of make some, changes to some other low-owned options.
Yeah, for sure. Early up to promo, I actually use mine. I like Cincy too, Dwayne. I used mine on the White Sox at plus 210. I think they could possibly score a couple first inning runs off of Lively. And then obviously part of the reason that line is so wide is because of the Cleveland bullpen. But you're trying to get the early win there with the White Sox. So that's the one I use. But yeah, I think Cincy, decent way to go as well. 3 more games to talk about. We move to Minnesota. This is the game with the potential weather issues. It is looking a little bit better, I think, than it did when I looked at it, first thing this morning. Looks like the Storms might kind of miss Minneapolis on both sides, but it is something we're going to have to wait and see. Obviously, this game doesn't start for another 2.5 hours. I do think, or that's not true, hour and a half. Detroit, Minnesota. So we'll answer the questions in Discord, make a final call there. I do have Bailey Ober as my favorite pitcher on the slate. If we feel comfortable with throwing him out there, but it's not going to be, I don't think, entirely comfortable, even if it looks okay, just because it's thunderstorms, humid in Minnesota. They could pop up at any time and knock Ober out of the game. The Twins are generally pretty cautious with their pitchers. I would be kind of surprised if they let Ober come back into the game after any sort of lengthy delay. So certainly going to be some risk with Ober if you decide to pull the trigger. I haven't decided. I do really like him and think he's going to pitch well for as long as he's out there today. But, of course, some risk, especially with a pretty expensive pitcher like Ober at 8,700. Kenta Maeda, certainly not going to risk the weather with him. Probably, frankly, wouldn't play him anyway. I do think the Twins are an interesting stack, and I do think this game will finish today. Obviously got plenty of time with the early start. And yeah, I think they'll find windows to get the game in. Twins do have some decent cheap bats. Brooks Lee called up for Royce Lewis. You can play him for stone minimum at shortstop. He looks like a decent hitter to me. They've got Austin Martin down there as well. We know the Detroit bullpen, not very good behind Kenta Maeda. So I do like the Twins stack quite a bit here. Ober, if it looks safe, and mostly off of the Tigers, I do think Colt Keith and Riley Green are reasonable plays if you do want to go that direction. Over to you, Mangone. What do you see Detroit and Minnesota?
Yeah, Detroit, obviously, they popped off yesterday. I'm not dying to get to them today. I think one reason you could make cases for them is typically on slates where you have Chris Sale to pay for, right? Like those are the slates where I find those bats a little bit more intriguing. So I don't see myself getting there with the bats. I know the weather is going to be a big factor. I also think like if you take weather out of it, I think Bailey Ober's a good play, but I prefer Pivetta. And I actually think Kenta Maeda is not the craziest play. We've talked about how bad this Twins team is without Royce Lewis. Look at that. No Royce Lewis in the lineup again. I looked at Maeda's numbers, and it felt like he's got some positive regression coming his way a little bit. So if you told me this game was good, DC, you could talk me into Maeda a little bit. But that's my big concern is like, do I want to risk Maeda and deal with the weather? Probably not. It just sounds like a bit of a mess. But I did come into this show wanting to talk him up a little bit. So I don't think he's the craziest idea. Ober, the big debate with him is like, let's say Pivetta's 45% owned and Ober's 5%. Is it worth taking the shot with the weather? That's the big debate. My thought would be you probably just avoid the situation and avoid this game. I know it sounds like the easy answer to give, but I just don't love the bats that much. And I don't need Ober or Maeda. They don't feel like guys that I have to get to. And I think there's other guys that I can take some chances on at pitcher or bats that are in like better spots or better ownership where I guess this game becomes a fade for me. And I think a lot of people will have the same sentiment. They'll all just be like, yeah, let's all agree. We're just not going to play this game. So if you really want to play the ownership angle, if you're playing a lot of lineups and you love this game, I could see taking the shot and the risk. I'm just not doing it today. So not for me, but that's the best analysis I can give. It's unfortunate that this game is probably going to be, I shouldn't say it's like wiped off the slate, but it feels like a game on the slate that is really tough to consider for sure. So it feels like we're losing this game basically, and it just is what it is.
Two things I would say. One, I don't think the pitching scores in general are going to be all that high today. So, if Ober goes 4 innings and gets 4 shutout innings and has 6 strikeouts and then gets removed from the game due to rain, that might be enough anyway, right? On this particular slate where we don't think pitchers are going to go crazy. So I think that makes him a little bit more appealing, assuming it starts on time. And then if you are playing Ober, what I'm probably going to do on one of my 4 teams today, if assuming the game starts on time and looks at least decent for weather, play Ober and play a full twin stack, right? Because they obviously are correlated together and getting the full game in there. And, if one or the other doesn't work out, you probably weren't going to win anyway. So I do think that makes some sense. Just kind of load up on the twin side and hope the weather goes in your direction. but I definitely wouldn't be playing, one-off Twins here, or even over by himself. I think is a little bit risky, but I have no problem loading up and just saying, hey, if it doesn't work out, then that lineup's obviously going to lose. That's I think the best way to approach it with a questionable weather game like this is either go all in or go all out on the game and hope it goes your way. Let's get to Philadelphia and the Chicago Cubs up next. This one in Chicago. No Wrigley wind game today. Going to be relatively cool. 75 degrees, winds blowing in just a little bit. Humid. Jamison Tyone pitching for the Cubs. He's had a pretty good season. You can certainly attack him with lefties. Can run on him as well, which makes some of the Phillies somewhat interesting. I don't think we have a lineup for Philadelphia yet. And then Christopher Sanchez pitching for the Phillies, coming off complete game, 9 strikeout shutout against Miami, 45 DraftKings points for Sanchez in that one. Only needed 101 pitches to get through the game, so I would not think that he'll be limited or fatigued or anything like that. He should be good to go. I think he had an extra day of rest as well. So sometimes like to fade those players coming off a massive performance, especially if they go above and beyond their normal pitch count. But I think Sanchez should be fine here. Pretty good matchup against a Cubs team that you certainly don't fear, especially with, relatively friendly pitching weather in Chicago. So I do like Sanchez quite a bit at 9K. I think he's a very reasonable pivot off of, a Pivetta or an Ober if you're scared of the weather. Not a lot of interest in Tyone for me. I do think he is in play on this particular slate at 7,300. Yeah, some high strikeout rates in that Philly lineup. Yeah, I don't think Tyone's the craziest play. I kind of had written him off a little bit, but thinking about it more, might pull the trigger on a lineup with Tyone. Yeah, lefties against Tyone is what you want. Guys like Stott, Marsh, maybe a David Dahl there at the bottom of the lineup. And then Sanchez just gives up no power, no fly balls. He's given up 1 home run the entire year. For me, that's enough to completely write off this Cubs team. Won't have any Cubs hitters in my lineups today. Mangone, what do you see? Philadelphia and Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, Philadelphia and Chicago is definitely an interesting game. Sanchez is someone that I have my eye on for sure. Basically, anyone against the Chicago Cubs right now, I think we just got to consider. They've just been so bad. Yes, they have some good righties in there that have some, power and pop that you could make cases for of one-offs like Morel and Suzuki, but I'm going to take my shot with Sanchez a little bit here. I think he's definitely a good pitching option on this slate. The Philly side of the ball is definitely the interesting one because I think Tyone's got some negative regression coming. I think he could be in trouble here. And I think this Phillies team, yeah, they're banged up, but they're still good. I want to see what their full lineup's going to be for today. I assume Marsh will be back in the lineup with it being a righty out there. So he'd be interesting. But Trey Turner, obviously 6K. Stott up at the top is definitely a good play. I want to see that Phillies lineup, but because they're banged up, they have enough value that they're pretty easy to get in there if you want to. And I think they're a really good stack tonight. So they'll definitely be on my radar. They're not my top stack of the day, but I think they're definitely in play against Tyone. I'm not scared of him. I don't think he's that good. Wind is blowing in, which I know in Chicago that matters, but it's only blowing in 5 miles an hour. It's not a huge deal. So I'm still on the Phillies today.
We did get their lineup just a couple minutes ago. Pretty standard. Stott, Turner, Bohm, Marsh, Castellanos, Clemens, Dahl, Rojas, and Stubbs. It's pretty crazy they can put out a good lineup without Harper, Schwarber, and Real Muto, and it's crazy. Still solid. The Phillies team, if they can get healthy by the playoffs, man, they're going to be scary.
Here's a question. I had a conversation with someone the other day. Who's right now? You got to pick Dodgers or Phillies. Who would you put your money on if you had to in the NL?
I like the Phillies better. I like their spot a little better. Yeah.
I felt the same way. It was like
the Dodgers are always choking the playoffs, and the Phillies like the complete opposite. So yeah.
Well, we were just talking about how at the start of the year, everyone thought the Dodgers were this the Dodgers got Ohtani. They're gonna win another World Series. They're a juggernaut. I just think the Phillies are more the favorite. And I know Vegas, I think, kind of agrees with that too, but they've looked really good. And if they get healthy with that pitching, their bullpen, like they just don't have holes. So it's
Their
going to be
bullpen's crazy. They're talking about
right.
trying to get Mason Miller from the A's, who's been just incredible all year long. And that would just be another arm that, you get to the playoffs with their bullpen, you turn the games in like 4 or 5 inning games, and then it's lights out for the other team. So, this Philly team can definitely do some damage. Let's get to the last game on the slate, San Diego and Texas. Max Scherzer and Michael King, two pretty good right-handed pitchers. Scherzer's been pretty solid since coming back from injury, 77 pitches in his last start. I would assume he'll be close to a full go, if not just no leash at all. I don't think he is quite the same pitcher that we have seen over the years, but still an effective one. I don't have a ton of interest in Scherzer here, though, against a Padres team that just makes so much contact. That's, I pretty much say that every time the Padres are on the slate. So I won't be going to Scherzer at 8,800. Again, I don't think he is a crazy play. Just will be going a different direction myself. I do like Michael King quite a bit, who has pitched really, really well since, really over the last 6 or 7 starts. He really has had barely a misstep. King is better against right-handed hitters quite a bit. And I do think that Texas will have a number of lefties in there. No lineup out for them quite yet. But nevertheless, I do think King at 8,400, pitching in a dome here against a Texas team that's been pretty cold all year long, could be a really strong play, especially if, some of these lefties are out of the lineup for Texas, which could be the case. We've seen Corey Seager kind of in and out of the lineup recently. So if he's out of there, certainly a bump to King. But I do like him regardless of what Texas puts out there. What about you, man, going Texas and San Diego?
Yeah, and one of those lefties, I believe, will be Travis Jankowski, and no one's scared of him. I know I played a bunch of him yesterday, but it's just like I never feel great when he's up the bat. So I think Michael King's a great play today. He will get some ownership. He seems like another guy that's going to get a bunch, but I'm willing to take the chance on him. I think in this spot, I just think it's worth it. We get him in that dome. It is a 7.5 total, which same with that Phillies game, which I thought was interesting, that I like the Phillies a little bit, but I think it's good total. You got to like Mike King a little bit here. Max Scherzer, I'm going to stay far away from. I just think it's too much of a mess right now with Max Scherzer. I also, I saw this, DC, you find this funny. I saw this Mets thing where they said the Mets look like they're going to be buyers at the deadline and the Rangers might be sellers. And guess who has an old pitcher that they could ship back over.
Trade them back and forth every year.
Yeah. I thought it was just a funny joke, but I doubt that'll actually happen. But Max Scherzer clearly is having some issues this year. And we should talk about how Max, we know, even when he was in his prime, DC, we would roster him and we'd always be like, okay, who's getting that one bomb against him? Well, what if he just struggles and gives up a lot of bombs? Like, this Padres team is good against righties. They don't strike out a lot. I think the Padres are a really interesting play on this slate. I think their team total's low, so people won't go to them. You're going to get these power bats at very low ownership. I just think it's worth taking a little bit of a stab on. So I don't hate the Padres here at low ownership. I'm going to consider them. I know when I ran the Sims and stuff like that over here with SaberSim, they popped up a little bit, and I thought that was intriguing because I had zero interest in Max, and I still have zero interest. And I think just from an ownership perspective, this Padres team is really interesting. It's also a shorter slate. We might even lose a couple games. So if you are losing a couple games, taking some of these lower totals or the dome games, I don't think it's the craziest idea. So I'm definitely going to consider that. We did get the Rangers lineup. No Marcus Semien, who's been really bad lately. It goes Smith, Seager, Lowe, Garcia, Langford, Tavares, Jankowski, Kanizer, and Ornelas, whatever his name is, that new guy. I don't even know how good he is. So he didn't seem like he's great, but that's not an amazing lineup. If you take the 1 through 4 out, it's Langford, Tavares, Jankowski, Kanizer, and Ornelas, like it's a bad bottom of the order. So that's definitely a nice bump to Michael King. I'm definitely going to be on him. And I like some Padres here. I don't want to completely ignore them. And with this slate getting a little bit shorter, it just makes me not like this chalk as much. Like, I think Yankees are the chalk of the slate. And I get it. They're a good offense. They have a high team total, but I think there's other ways to attack this slate and take some shots. Like, this Yankees lineup isn't that good right now. And I think we want to get a little bit different on this slate. So Padres are a pretty interesting option.
I'm with you. I like the Padres as a pretty fun contrarian option. Those lefty bats against Scherzer could certainly get there. And listen, we don't know what we're going to see out of Scherzer going forward. He's obviously getting up there in age, been injured a lot. Not a great bullpen behind him. I wouldn't be shocked to see San Diego do some damage and a low ownership as well. So that's obviously always appealing. That's all 7 games. Let's get to stacks, pitching, home runs, and favorite plays. I'll throw it to you, man, going your favorite stack and your favorite contrarian stack.
Yeah, favorite stack. Who is? I had it earlier. The Guardians. It'll be the Guardians. That'll be my favorite stack of the day. I think they're really good. And I still think they get a little low owned because I think everyone just gravitates towards those Yankees bats instead. Like, if they're going to spend up, they're going to spend for who? Soto, Judge. They're not going to spend for these other guys that we kind of discussed. So I'll go with the Guardians. And then contrarian stack, I think it's the Padres. It sounds like that'll be the team that I go with. That's the contrarian one. They've grown on me a bit, and their price tags aren't too bad too, which is kind of nice. And we talked about Jackson Merrill yesterday and how hot he's been. Listen, I won't be playing David Peralta. I'll let whoever else wants to play David Peralta if he's in that lineup. But I think this is a pretty good team to take a shot on. So they'll be my low-owned team of the day.
Yeah, I was going to give the same 2 answers. I'll stick with the Guardians as my favorite stack. They are pretty clearly my favorite stack on the slate. So I don't want to give, I'll give the real answer. It is the Guardians for me as my favorite stack. Contrarian stack, and this is partly just due to ownership and leverage reasons, but I do like the Marlins lefty power against Nick Pivetta. Jazz, Josh Bell, Jesus Sanchez, Xavier Edwards is cheap. Pivetta does give up power to lefties, and if those guys do some damage, half the field is going to probably go down with Pivetta, obviously, while your teams go up. So really like the leverage there. Obviously, most of the time not going to work out, but when it does, you'll have a good chance to get near the top of a tournament. Most important pitcher for you, Mangone, who are you looking at today?
Yeah, before we get to that, we did get the Padres lineup. You'll like, I think you'll like it. Arise in the 1 hole, Profar, Merrill in the 3 hole, Machado, Solano, Peralta, Kim, Sullivan, and Wade at second base, which Wade is kind of interesting. The reason why I don't hate the Wade ideas, second base is sometimes a good position, just like to punt. And I think you can kind of do that here on this slate where it's like not a bad spot to just punt it off and move on. So, but most important pitcher, let me see. I guess I'm trying to think of like an under-owned one that it's going to be. I can't think of which one it'll be for that, but it'll probably be Michael King. Because like I like Pivetta and King as like number 1 and 2. And I think King will be most important just because of his ownership will be lower than Nick Pivetta. So I'll go with Michael King as my most important pitcher.
He will be my answer as well. I'm in on the Michael King train today, expecting him to pitch well against the Rangers. So I'll be rolling with you on that one. Home run call. Who's going yard today?
All right, let's go with we talked about liking the Cleveland lefties. Let's go with Josh Naylor. A lot of people will spend down for Ben Rice, and Josh Naylor bangs one out and leverages the field a bit. So we'll go with him.
I'll go with Jackson Merrill in the 3 hole today for the Padres. I've kind of been in on him recently against right-handed pitching. And Scherzer does give up his fair share of home runs to lefties. So Jackson Merrill going yard. Finally, your favorite overall hitter on this slate, Mangone.
Yeah, favorite overall hitter is probably going to be Jose Ramirez. He's pricey, but it's for a reason. And I don't know. I like Pivetta and King today, but feel free to get uncomfortable. Just get those bats in, right? You and I have talked about this a lot, DC. We want to just get the bats in to save us. We think the starting pitcher difference isn't going to be a wide range. So I don't know, spend down. I think throughout the show, DC, I've talked myself into Framber Valdez more. I know I discussed that earlier and it's really uncomfortable, but I don't know. I just think if you're not playing Pavetta or King, which I think they're the two best plays, I think that could be the chalkiest combination as well. You got to find other ways to get uncomfortable and just like take some stabs. And I kind of want to do that.
Yeah, no problem with that. I will go with Mr. Bryson Stott. It's my favorite hitter on the slate, hitting leadoff for the Phillies against Tyone. Gets the platoon advantage. Can run on Tyone as well. I think Stott could do some real damage today. All right, Mango. That's all 7 games. Stats, pitchers, hitters, home runs, everything you guys need, hopefully, to have a good July 4th. We'll, of course, have cores up on the Run Pure Sports website shortly, and we'll be monitoring that Twins game to see what to do there as well. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you all have a great 4th of July. We'll be back, of course, at the same time, same place, or not same time, but normal time, tomorrow afternoon with the Friday night fireworks show. So, yeah, that'll do it for Man Go. I'm Draft Sheet. We're out of here.